While making a compost, remember to choose a container without any holes at its base, just like this one which I have taken. Remember, our compost doesn't need meat, fish, bread, plastics. So now we will be adding all the kitchen waste which we usually throw in the dustbin. First, I'll be using some potato peels, some bitter gourd and some bottle gourd. Now some cabbage peels and then okra. And now some onion and garlic peels. Well, do you know a compost can also be made with only onion and garlic peels? That compost is also very fertile. And now some mushrooms. Mushrooms contain copper, potassium and phosphorus. They are the only good source of selenium and they heat up the compost. Because a cold compost takes lots of time to decompose. They increase the water retention capacity of the compost and then you don't have to water your compost quite often. We will cut them down into smaller pieces. And now some Mosambis, but you can go for oranges as well. Do you know Mosambis and oranges have phosphorus, nitrogen, sulfur, potassium and calcium in them? We will cut them into smaller pieces because the big ones take lot of time to decompose. A plant mainly needs 6 types of nutrients for its growth. Nitrogen helps in its overall growth. Potassium helps in keeping it healthy, while phosphorus brings lots of flowers to it and helps in root development. And now banana peels. They have 42% of potassium in them. Can you imagine, so high? As you can see, I've cut them into smaller pieces already. This helps in decomposition. Egg shells. They are rich in calcium, potassium, phosphorus and sulfur. We will crush them before putting. And now I am going to use an ingredient which is optional. If you are a vegetarian, you can use that instead of using eggshells, and that is milk. And if you are using this compost for flowering plants, don't forget to use used tea leaves. And now some shredded newspapers, as they are biodegradable. Fresh grass, the unwanted ones which grow in your garden. And then cover your compost with these dry leaves. They have micronutrients and help in aeration. And now finally a layer of soil. It has bacteria which helps in decomposition. Spread it across your compost. And now I'll be adding another layer as I have some ingredients left. And then you have to repeat the whole process again. See, after adding the next layer, our compost looks like this. So now we have to keep it in the sunlight and water it if it is very hot. But remember, we added mushrooms to it, right? And mushrooms retain water, so you don't have to water your compost quite often. And remember to cover it. Well, the making of a compost is a work of patience. It won't be completed in a day or two, but it will take around 45 to 60 or more than that, like 75 to 80 days for completion. The vegetable scraps, fruit peels, tea leaves, fresh leaves are the greens, which are the nitrogen-rich compost material. They constitute 25% of our compost, while the dry leaves, eggshells, shredded newspapers are the browns, which are the carbon-rich compost material. They constitute 75% of our compost. what has happened to it after keeping it in sunlight for 7 days? It has gone down. So now we will be adding another layer to fill it up again. We will be adding all those things which we added earlier. Remember? All those kitchen waste like eggshells, banana peels, mosambi peels. I've added them, but you can add something else like oranges, beans, carrots, pumpkin peels. Now add all the grasses, leaves and cover it with soil properly. This will help them in decomposition and your process will be fulfilled nicely. See, filled up again and then again cover it. Keep it in sunlight and water it if it is very hot. And now we'll watch it what happens next after 15 days. See, after a month our compost had got so much down. Remember, we filled it up till the top. Well, do you know, a good compost needs a very good aeration, and for that you have to take this kind of spatula and mix it. After every 3 to 4 days, you have to repeat this process of mixing. So your compost will be nicely aerated. If your compost has settled it down completely, it means your compost is doing great. See, now we cannot find any of the vegetable scraps, eggshells, nor the newspapers. So see, now after 50 days, our compost is finally ready. A good compost should have a color like this, a dark brown color. It should be fine grained. Now we will separate all these like this. All the roots and the gravels should be separated. So see, now after taking out all the unwanted material, our compost looks like this. So fine grained. So you have to put a very small quantity of your compost to them because it is very rich in all the minerals. And remember, before putting it to your flower pot, keep your compost in sunlight for some days because it is very raw and powerful. So see, I told you our compost can do magic. See, remember, I showed you some very bad flowers, dull, and now see, they're so beautiful. So you can store your compost in these plastic bags. Before storing them, dry them completely by keeping them in the sun. You can keep your compost in these plastic bags for days and months.